Welcome to the Joshua Project Podcast. Hey, we're a little late in this week's recording, but hey, here we are. It's not a science, it's not a rule. Joshua Project Podcast with friends. And today we have an oldie but a goodie, Kevin Wagner.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, well, when we first turned on the computer screen today, I said, "What's up, Kelly Slater?"
Yeah. And I was like, who's Kelly Slater?
He said, "I'm too old school. I'm more like Tom Curran."
Yeah, I did say that, actually.
And so that's hilarious if you surf and you know who those people are. But if you're just tuning in and you're like, I have no idea who those people are. They're two of the best surfers to ever walk the face of the earth. So
yeah,
funny. Well, hey, Kevin, there's some people who don't know about the great Kevin Wagner. Man, give us a snapshot of who Kevin Wagner is.
Father of two boys, Caleb and Connor, 24 and 30, 31, in fact. Married to Brooke Wagner. We got married 5 years ago. In fact, you were our officiating pastor.
Today,
in fact, is our anniversary. That's right. We got married in South Carolina. And in doing so, we ended up purchasing a home here. In fact, we closed on the home the same week that we got married.
That's so cool.
It's not our main residence, but it's a beach house. So because of the coronavirus quarantined, we are here in beautiful South Carolina, enjoying the sun, playing a little golf, going to the beach, spend a lot of time together. But so 53, married, two boys, born in Texas, raised in Texas half my life, high school, college, etc. there. Then moved to Southern California a few years after that, lived in Southern California for quite some time, where in fact I met Bryce. Right. And was there until about 9 years ago, and moved to Columbus, Ohio. Kind of a strange situation, but moved there in a relationship with someone and ended up not working out, but God's got better plans than Kevin Wagner, and he put Brooke in my life, and one of the best things that's ever happened to me. So that's the thumbnail sketch of Kevin Wagner. Retired. I retired a couple of years back, had a successful business career for years, and was able to retire a little bit early. Very happy about that. And as we're getting older and tired more often, I'm very appreciative of the fact I don't have to get up super early anymore, but I still find myself getting up early anyway. But that's kind of a snapshot of me.
Hey, so remind me a little bit, take me back to when you had moved to California and how we met.
So I was working for a company, a Texas-based company, doing national sales for them, traveling a tremendous amount, and had hired a guy in Southern California, but he was pretty green, needed a lot of energy and effort on my part, more so than other people. So I said, never lived in San Diego. I surfed my whole life. That's kind of like the epicenter of surfing. And I said, kill two birds with one stone. And that's how I ended up in Southern California. Now, how I met you was, again, successful guy, traveling a lot, but really a hole in my soul was missing something. I didn't know what I was missing. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so got back from a business trip one evening, sitting out on my back patio, looking out over the ocean. It was beautiful. And I was like, what am I doing? I mean, I am completely unhappy, very much of a void in my life.
But successful, like business
financially, successful financially. Yeah, and I had previously been married, so I had a failed marriage. My children were living in Texas at that time, back with their mother, and it was a solitary kind of life. I wasn't really dating anybody. It was just work all the time. I'd achieved that financial success, but really had a void in my life and couldn't understand what it was. And I tried lots of different things to kind of fill that void.
Yeah.
alcohol and spending and travel and girls and all that, typical secular stuff with zero effect. So came in from a business trip on a Saturday night, was really like, what am I doing? This sucks, man. All by myself, this beautiful city, beautiful weather, and decided that, which is strange, but decided that maybe I should go to church. Now, I had a very negative connotation of religion and God. In fact, I wanted nothing to do with them because my parents were Jehovah's Witness, and I was actually raised a Jehovah's Witness, left that organization when I was very young, left home. And so I had, I had very negative thoughts of religion and God, and because the only thing it ever did in my life was cause pain. So it was a little strange that I felt this tug to maybe go to church, because definitely not what I would normally have done. It would have been, let's go have some drinks, let's go smoke a cigar, let's go play golf, let's go do something. And so looked up in the phone book churches, and there was hundreds of churches in San Diego.
Okay,
had no idea.
That makes you sound really old. You looked it up in a phone book.
Yeah.
Like, we have to appreciate this, what you just said right now. It wasn't like you picked up your phone and you Googled a church. You looked it up in a phone book.
Well, at that point, we were still using Motorola flip phones. So
2005.
It was before that, I think, right? I think it was before 2005.
Pretty darn close to that.
Close to that.
Plus or minus.
Yeah. So anyway, I was looking through these churches. They all had Pentecostal and Baptist and Catholic and non-denominational. I had zero idea which one to pick. So, me being a guy who surfed, I picked the one that had a wave in the ad. It was cool looking ad. North Coast Calvary Chapel. So I decided, I looked them up, decided I would go Sunday morning to church. Hadn't been to church in years. And so did the proper thing, put on my coat and tie, got all dressed up.
Jehovah's Witness of you.
Yeah, or Southern Baptist, or a lot what a lot of people, prototypically think of when they think of going to church.
Right.
So I showed up at this, turned out to be an enormous church when I got there, hundreds and hundreds of people. Everybody's in board shorts and T-shirts, and some people dressed up, but everybody over 60 at that point was dressed. Everybody else was pretty casual. And of course, I was younger then. And a couple of people were like, hey, good to see you. Are you speaking today? And of course, I was like, no, I'm not. So sat in the back, and Mark Foreman, who's the pastor, I swear to you, Bryce, I could have sworn he was talking directly to me the entire time. It was very surreal. And afterwards, Adam Statmiller came up, introduced himself to me, asked me, who I was, what I was doing, typical stuff. At which point he said, hey, man, you'd fit right in a 30-40 group. Let me introduce you to B-Nug. And that's when I met Bryce. The rest is history.
Yeah, so that's a pretty wild story, man. There's so much to just digest from that story. It was the same thing the very first time I went to North Coast Calvary Chapel. This is back when they were in the Rouse parking lot, and or I should say shopping center. Yeah. And I had left a church where I kind of came back to Christ at, and I just didn't like the closing remarks that the pastor had said. He had said, if you're not tithing, we need your seat. And I felt this guilt and shame. I was tithing to this church, but I looked to this mom and this daughter sitting next to me. For all I know, they're single and on welfare. And it just bugged me, man. And what people may or may not know, that you and I have very similar stories in the fact that I was raised Jehovah's Witness. I spent 10 years in a life of debauchery because I wanted nothing to do with religion. Hey, to be honest with you, I still want nothing to do with religion.
Yeah.
But that just bugged me. And so I stopped going to church, and then I was hanging out talking to my friend Julia one day, and she says, hey, my parents go to a really cool church.
Yeah.
You should come with me some Sunday. And I was like, okay. I liked my friend Julia, and so I trusted her. And I went to North
And how
Coast.
bad could it be? I mean, what are they going to do? It's not. It's simple. He's going to get up and a couple of thousand these, and then you go home, right?
Right. Maybe. I think that there was a tug on my heart, kind of like you were saying too. Even as you look into the phone book, you're like, it's really weird, like that. We have this God-shaped hole in our heart.
Yeah,
We're gonna fill it with something.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to realize what it is that we need is actually God, not alcohol or drugs or women. And so I went, and would you believe the very first sermon I ever heard Mark Foreman preach about was on tithing. And I was like, are you kidding me, man? I was like going to get up and just walk out and wait for my friend and her family at the end. But I was intrigued. I told this story to Mark Foreman. I go, but I was intrigued at the way this pastor said God. I was like, have I been mispronouncing God this whole time? Because he kept saying God. And he really captured me with the way he spoke. And when he talked about tithing, I was like, that's it. That's exactly how I feel. Like it comes from the heart, and it comes from obedience and not obligation and give me your money because we need to keep the lights on. And I was struck with Mark Foreman, and we attended that church for a number of years. And in fact, that's where you and I became friends, is through the Joshua Project. We were the guinea pigs of 2006, the very first Joshua Project. And the amazing thing about that, and it's not really the amazing thing, but the unique and interesting thing about the Joshua Project, that was 2006. So here we are 14 years later, and we've remained the greatest of friends.
Yeah.
Speak a little bit about that in your life. As you've experienced these highs and these lows, the successes and the struggles in life, what has the Joshua Project brought to you in regards to structure and friendship?
Well, I had no reference on really what the Joshua Project was about. I had no real concept of what Adam was trying to achieve initially. But for me, what it was fellowship. And I knew that I couldn't hang out with people, not that I didn't remain friends with people who weren't, air finger quotes, Christians, but I knew that I needed to hang out with a little better class of people. Let me say that. Somebody who was going to encourage me instead of talking about sports or surfing or drinking or girls or whatever.
Fair.
So for me, it was a way to fellowship, and I was so I was just hungry for information. And I remember Adam, because I was asking questions all the time. In fact, you were doing a Bible study at your house on, I think, Tuesdays, and I would ask questions the entire Bible study because I was just thirsting to understand. So for me, the Joshua Project was a way just to feed me and to hang out with my buddies. And we went snowboarding, and we got together. We had good times together, but it was all kind of focused and circled around seeking God. So that was my experience with it. And of course, I learned so much more: leadership and being an example and being a real man and what that means. And that's kind of what I took from it, if that's in fact what you're looking for.
Well, I'm amazed that, I mean, we had like 9 guys that went through the very first Joshua Project in 2006. Right. And I would say that I am still friends with every single one of those people. Now, some of them, you and I, we hang out a little bit more. Some of them we stay in contact via phone call every 6 or 9 months. And some of them were casual friends via social media. But every single one of those guys has become somebody in my life who I believe, if I called up right now, they would be willing to be there for me.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And what's kind of cool about that too is they're spread across the United States. So if I wanted to go to Missouri right now, I can call up my boy Walt Bateman, and I know that hey man, worst case scenario, he'd throw a tent up in his yard for me. And if I needed to go to the East Coast, and even beyond just 2006, the men that have graduated through this project, I know I can call Joe Madron up on the East Coast, and I can call Mark Salaska up in Pennsylvania.
Well, Mark was with us on, he was first one, right? Wasn't Mark
Correct.
with us? He was with
Correct.
us.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I really have admired about the Joshua Project. I mean, we've graduated over 100 men in there now. We're getting ready to graduate the first 4 guys ever in Montana through the Joshua Project. And so that's really exciting. Now, through the years, more recently, even like in the last year, you've experienced some major health crisis. And so explain to me a little bit about that crisis and how your faith in God helped carry you through
that. 3 years ago, went in, excuse me, just turned 50. And, all the guys that are on here who aren't 50 will soon be facing this. But, you go in for I went in for my annual physical, checked up, make sure I was healthy. And my first colonoscopy, just make sure everything intestinally is working well. And, typical stuff every guy has to go through. Did my first colonoscopy, and they found stage 4 colon cancer, which, I was a healthy guy. I was always very active. I always took care of myself. So it really kind of puts things, your whole life and thinking, it changes you literally the second he says cancer. My whole thought process changed because even though I had experienced some great things in life, I didn't want it to end. I had a new wife. We were enjoying our time together. I just retired. So I didn't want my life to end like that. So what my focus became instantaneously was God. I knew where I stood with God. I knew where I know where I'm going when my life's done here on earth. But I felt the need to have somebody. I needed the need to be comforted, and not from a doctor, or not even from my wife, or not from friends, but from a much higher being, of my Father. So went through a surgery. Was fortunate enough to a lot of prayer. Was fortunate enough to make it through the surgery at the end of that year, and all cancer was gone. Praise God. And so, I'm healthy again. I had another had a blockage last November, and the valves again, and gallbladder removed. So that was another 10 days in the hospital. Not super fun. Not a great way if you're ever looking to lean up to do that, because you lose a lot of weight very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But back to my normal healthy self. And what it has done, the health issues, has strengthened my resolve to continue to seek God, but it's also strengthened my wife's resolve to do the same and to continue to count on Him, especially in those times of trouble.
Yeah, there's a power of prayer that is very real in regards to that. We have a prayer box here at the church, and I remember 3 years ago, man, I wrote one in there: Father God, heal my friend Kevin of his cancer, heal him. And whenever we have answered prayers, we draw a big heart on them. It's still on the bulletin board in the office, and I love walking by that and just remembering God's faithfulness.
Well, I lived, and I say to this day, by your stripes we are healed. And His word, just like it says, it comes down from heaven like the rain, and it won't come down without doing what it's supposed to do. So I knew that I'm not going to say I knew. I was scared. I doubted. I was concerned, but I felt in my heart I was going to be okay. One way or another, whatever that meant, whether it meant that I was no longer here, or whether it meant that I knew I would be okay. So yeah, it's amazing.
Hey, well, so let's wrap this up. Tell me, don't tell me, tell someone who might be listening who hasn't been through the Joshua Project, why should they consider going through the Joshua Project?
Well, knowledge is always a good thing. And I learned a lot, not only biblical knowledge, but also knowledge on really how to be a man, how to be a leader. You know, the reason it's called the Joshua Project is specifically for that reason. And so if you're considering it, if you're, you know, weighing the option of, well, I only have so much time, there's very powerful, for me, there was very, very powerful things in fellowshipping with the right kind of people, the right kind of guys, godly men who are also seeking the same thing. So, you know, if in doubt, just do it. 100%.
I love that. When I started the Joshua Project in 2006 with you and these 7 other guys, I had no idea that that would be a launching pad for me. I knew I loved God's word. I knew that I always wanted to, you know, occasionally speak.
Yeah.
But Adam Statmiller ran that for 2 more years. And then there was 2 years where it didn't run.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. And when my son was born and the Statmillers brought us over a meal, I had asked Adam on my front porch down on Freeman Street in Oceanside, hey, Adam, whatever happened to the Joshua Project? And he says, well, that's funny you should ask. I think you should run it. And I was like, no, that's not why I'm asking. It was instrumental in my life and keeping my marriage together and helping me walk as a man of God. I was just interested in what had happened. And so I spent some time in prayer, and indeed I started running it. And we ran it for 2 or 3 years. And with the help of some amazing friends, I felt like God say, hey, this is not a garage band ministry, man. I need you to turn this into a nonprofit. And so we did. We turned it into a nonprofit, and here we are running just as strong as ever. I am no longer a part of the project. I don't hold the title. I'm not the president. I'm not the secretary. I'm just a pastor in little old Montana carrying on the legacy. And I'm excited to see what comes of the Joshua Project because I've seen so much good, not just come into men's lives, but to come into marriages, to come into families, and to see these leaders rise up within the church.
Yeah.
I think now more than ever, we need men to step up and become leaders in the church. Like, ain't no one got to ask you to take the trash out. Right. Because you can see the trash can overflowing at church. You don't need to be on a team. You just get it done. And I'm excited for what God has in store for you and your life and your marriage that we're celebrating today. It was so cool to look back at Facebook memories and see my wife and I all dressed up. And that was one of the most favorite memories of my life, for sure. But also to see what happens in our own lives personally and here at the church in Montana. So I was thinking, man, dude, you know what? I don't know how we pulled this off, but dude, we need like a JP golf fundraiser.
I'm down.
So we got to set that up.
Kiowa Island, man.
Oh man. Yeah. One of the 5 top hardest courses in the world. I was looking at a picture today, and it was a picture of you and me on the golf course, and it was talking about Kiowa Island and how we were playing there and how hard of a course it was. And I said my hand wedge was working really well. In other words, I just picked my ball up and throw it because that was a tough course.
Very tough course.
Beautiful course too. Well, hey, friends, that's the Joshua Project wrap up for this week. And we want to get you on the Joshua Project. So get a hold of us, comment in the comment section, or if you know how to hit me up because, man, it's so cool to hear just from a wide range of people and not just men. I think that, the Joshua Project, we've actually graduated women through their own project of sorts. And I'd love to have you guys on as a guest because I love hearing from you. I love, even despite the distance and the time, how God continues to work in our life. So my friends, be well and love one another. Peace.